Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. So today I was walking up and down the aisles of my store looking for a cool kit to build and share with you guys today. And I should point out, during the months of September and October, it's the lightest time of the year for new kits to come out. So although I have a ton of new stuff that I plan on building in the near future, fortunately I don't have any of it yet. So I was looking up and down the shelves trying to find something cool, like I said, and I had remembered that I had not built the AMX 13 from Tamiya. Now this AMX 13 is a 2016 kit, so it's all brand new tooling, really good state-of-the-art type of build. Now the AMX 13 is a light tank, reconnaissance tank, as you can tell by here. It's a 15-ton tank that had a 3-man crew. 2 sat in the body, 1 in the turret. Because it was such a small turret, it actually had a autoloader inside of it. So there was 2 6-round drums in the turret that they could fire 5 seconds per round. So really high rate of fire. One big downfall of the entire vehicle was that when you ran out of those 12 shells, you had to load up the drums from the rear of the tank from the outside. So you had to go outside during a fighting time. So usually I would imagine after you shot the 12 rounds, you got out of Dodge and just moved along. Now the French produced 7,700 of these starting in 1951, of which 3,400 of them were exported around the world. The Model 51, which we're going to build right here, had a 75mm gun, and the 75mm gun that is on this tank is basically like the French type version of the German L70 that the Germans were putting on the Jagdpanzer IV in World War II. Then the French also made a Model 52 that had a 90mm gun on it, and finally the Model 58 that had a 105mm gun. The Model 58s with 105s were usually for export. So it had a mixture of, like I was telling you, of light armor, but it was a cast and welded plate. Very fast speed for a tank like this. It was 37 miles per hour or 60 kilometers an hour, and that's all because it did only weigh 15 tons. So it was primarily for reconnaissance, get out there, but it could tangle with some other vehicles because of that high-powered gun. But it was mainly designed to do a little bit of reconnaissance and then allow like the M47s, M48s tanks, the bigger heavies to come in and do most of the tank battles. So it looks like it's a very nice kit. There's 4 sprues inside, all state-of-the-art tooling, beautiful, beautiful look inside. So I'm excited to get started on this. So enough talking about it. Let's get started on it. Okay guys, before we get started on the build, what I thought I would do is share a little piece of World War II history with you. And this piece of track right here is a Panzer III-4, German of course, Ostketten track. Now the regular standard size of a Panzer III-4 would be about up to here, so all of this would be the normal size right here. But the Germans found, especially after the invasion of Russia, that their Panzer IIIs and IVs were getting bogged down way too easily. So their first thing that they decided to do was add a long piece of metal that would come off of the tracks, and it was called Winterketten track. And that worked fairly well for snow, but as the snow became mud, they found that it would sometimes still get bogged down. So their idea was to come up with a piece of track that was more likely to mimic what a Panther track would have been like. So the vehicle could have distributed its weight much more easier, so it wouldn't sink down as far into the muck and mire and all the mud and things like that. So one thing that they did right here is they added another little loop right here for the track pin to go through. So it was a little bit stronger as well. So this part would be less likely to break off, unlike the Winterketten. Added some really big ice cleats right in through here, or just traction cleats too. But thought it was kind of interesting to show you guys. I'll kind of flip it over. This one came out of Eastern Europe, and it's just a kind of a cool thing because you don't see too many of these the Ostketten around. But I thought I would share it with you guys today. So it probably weighs about, I'm guessing probably about 20-25 pounds. Just a cool piece of World War II history to share with you. So as we get started here, what I thought I would do is, since this is a new kit and literally just a year old, I thought what we'd do is take a look at all the different parts that make up this kit. To start off, it's a bathtub style hull, as you can see right here. And I'll also show you this piece right here, the turret, and how nicely, I'll get as close as possible there. They have a nice textured surface on this. Really makes it look like it was rough cast, as well as all of this with slide molding has all come out as one piece. So that's really cool. That's rather than having to glue on this extra pieces right here. This will make it much easier to assemble. Then you're going to get two of this particular sprue, and this has got all of your wheels, your drive sprocket, return idler, your suspension arms. So two of these pieces inside there. Pretty easy and straightforward. We'll also take a look at the main body parts right here. So you have your upper hull, part of the turret, and because of the unusual shape of the turret, we've got multiple pieces that make up that. The barrel is right here, is molded as one piece minus the muzzle brake, which I'll take a look at on the next piece. And of course there's a figure on here as well. And then this is just the other sprue that comes with it. Let's see where that muzzle brake would be on this thing. And you can see they put the texture on all of the upper surfaces that need it as well. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It takes a second there. So this is the muzzle brake right here, and it's actually molded as two half pieces. So it looks like the top would be easy to sand off right there, as well as the front. So we shouldn't have much problem using the barrel right out of the kit here. And this is all of the canvas part that hold, between the turret and the upper hull. And then when it comes to the tracks are just the simple rubber bands. And since this is just going to be a quick build, we'll just put these on right here. And I think with a little super glue, we should be able to get those to conform to just the way we want. And actually, come to think of it, these are actually made out of the new plastic. So these actually use modeling glue. So we'll be able to just put a little modeling glue around the different wheels and get a nice little sag out of them. And the last little piece in here is we have our decals on the other side, but we also have the little photo etch for this very unusual grill on it. So that's included with the kit as well. Okay, so now that we have all that parts to take a look at, let's start assembling the lower hull. Okay, I've just started the process of gluing on all the parts to make up the lower hull. And I'll show you kind of quickly here. Obviously it's going to go together pretty quickly like most Tamiya kits do. So we've attached these little points and attached the suspension arms next after that. And they've got pins that line up so you can't put them in the wrong position. And we'll glue all that on in a few minutes. They also have something that I really appreciate, and I've mentioned this many other times before, poly caps. And the poly caps are going to be put on each one of the wheels. So we'll put this little piece, put the poly cap inside here, glue this to the back, and each one of these wheels will be ready to pop on and off, so we can do our painting individually, especially with these because they do have a rubber lip around it. So it shouldn't be too difficult to paint these, but it's nice that we can pop them on and off. And then we have all of our different little, like I said, like the suspension arm. There's also a specialty suspension arm for the front, and that same goes through for the drive sprocket as well as the idler. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all these pieces, start putting them together, come back and show you what it looks like. Now as I begin to attach the back part of the lower hull, you'll notice off that we're putting in a poly cap into place here, and that is going to be so we can actually separate the vehicle once it's assembled using the poly cap, so we don't have to glue the top and bottom down together. So now we'll just glue this back portion into place and then start attaching all the things like on the back here for it. And also there are large poly caps inside the front drive sprocket. I mean where the transmission goes and when the front drive sprocket will hook up. So we'll be able to push that in and then followed up by the piece right here. So you'll be able to spin that part really nicely. And it's just going to make it a lot easier to get the tracks on later. This is just one other little small thing that I absolutely love about Tamiya kits is when you're putting on some little parts, a lot of times they will give you a large and small pin so you don't accidentally put it on upside down, because sometimes you're looking at instructions and the vehicle's flipped upside down or right side up and you kind of forget sometimes what you're doing with it. But with this way it's impossible to put it in wrong, and that's just a little thing like that really speeds up construction and really prevents you from making any mistakes down the road. Okay, I'm just in the process right now of gluing on a few little parts onto the top of the hull here, and it's all pretty straightforward. Most of it has to do is with this radiator, as well as these little clips and this little button tab right here that'll correspond with the poly cap that goes in on the other side. So these probably are not 100% dry yet, so we're not going to force it on, but once this is can pop right inside there, you can see that we've basically done the entire or almost the entire lower hull in about, I'd say about 2.5 hours worth of actual build time. Everything fit together really well. Now keep in mind too, there's lots of accessories and things like that we have to put on and tools, but you know, the primary build of the lower hull is pretty much complete, and these little pieces will lock underneath here to kind of hold it in place, and then you can push down on that tab to get a really tight fit. But if you need to take off the top piece off of it, and with all the polycop, all this kit basically can come apart, making painting that much easier. Okay, I'm starting to attach a lot of the extra parts on the upper hull, whether it be lights or any of the guards, as well as all these little stowage bins and things like the muffler. So we'll go ahead and glue these into place. We'll do that in a minute. I'm just going to kind of show you how they all go together. So the stowage bins will go on here. Then it comes to the muffler. Now the muffler is going to get glued into place right there, and then it has a shield that'll go over the top of it. We're not going to glue any of these parts on right now because we want to leave this separate so we can do a nice rusting job on the muffler and the pipes going out. So, and if you put this on, you can't get the piece back inside there. So we'll glue all the other bins on, as well as the bins on the other side here. It's one big long stowage bin that'll go up right in here, and that fits in there really well. Now I've also started to glue on all of the little grab handles, and I actually left this one off purposely to kind of show it to you guys. Hopefully you can see the little nub that's on top here, and that comes from cutting the piece off the sprue. One thing that you can do, make it a little bit easier on yourself, is you can glue the part into place like I've done right here. Let it fully dry, of course, and then it's a lot easier to go back and take the nub off once it's glued on, because you're trying to hold that with tweezers sometimes, especially if it's got little pieces that stick out. The part goes flying and you never find it again. So any of those little hubs, those little grab handles, excuse me, that's a real easy way to do it. Get it glued into place, and then it's much easier to sand down. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the pieces on like that. Also, we have the spare wheel that you do have to drill a hole right into the front plate here, and that's going to get glued. But we're not going to glue this as well because we want to paint the rubber on this, and then the inside gets painted the color that the vehicle would be. So I'm going to get the parts that need to be glued into place, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. A couple of other quick notes as we're going forward on this. All the headlights and the infrared lights are all get put on, but you have to put the lenses in separate. Now the lenses are regular plastic, they're not clear plastic, but there's a screen that goes over it, so you do want to paint the lenses separately. So we're going to hold off putting on the screen, and then we'll paint the lenses, put those in, and then the little grill that goes over it, we'll glue those in last. And the other quick thing I want to point out to you too is, like I was telling you earlier, these tracks do take regular glue, but they absolutely tell you, do not use the extra thin cement. And I think the extra thin is a little too hot. So if you put that on right there, it can cause the tracks to partially fall apart in that area because it just softens it too much. So we're going to go ahead and using their regular Tamiya regular cement, and just a little clamp right here to make sure it stays together. And it is pushing a little bit on the guide tooth, but I find that they pop right back into place, and it's just mainly to hold it so they have a nice strong bond. Okay, I've begun to put the different pieces of the turret together. One thing to keep in mind too, there are quite a few holes on the turret that you want to drill out before you start gluing it all together. And you can just use your little pin vise with the bit inside there. So we've got the upper and lower portion. These were just like 4 parts, and this was just about 4 parts too. And there's some poly caps inside there. So what will happen is you'll pop that into place right there. This piece is a pin that goes into the poly cap on either side, and then you have a turret where the entire turret and gun all operate as one. And then we'll go ahead. Now I've got more sanding and cleanup to do on the barrel and things like that, but you can kind of see how it's going to turn out. And then it's got some locks on the bottom here. You just a matter of popping those in, and there you go. You got the general shape of the vehicle. Now obviously there's quite a few parts we have to put on top there, and these are some of those holes, and these are all going to be for like long bars and grab handles, things like that, that'll go on it. But overall it's going together really quick and easy, and just a matter of putting the rest of the parts on the turret, which we'll do right now. If there's anything unusual, I will show you that part going on. If there's anything that needs to have like any help, letting you guys know. If not, I'll probably just put all the rest of the parts on the turret. We've also left off all of the tools, of course, because we're going to paint those separately. And some of these parts are not glued into place, like the extra track. I've just kind of popped it in place there just to show you how the vehicle is going to look, as well as that one of those, pull it off here, one of the little screens for the front here, or grills I should call it, not a screen. So yeah, it's going together pretty well, and like I said, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of the turret parts now, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, here we are. We have completed the majority of the model, and turret-wise, everything went together real well. The only minor little thing I had, and you can see I'm still in the process of working on it, is there is this canvas cover that will protect the inside of the turret from like water and stuff getting inside there, and it's made up of like 6 different pieces, and because it's canvas, I wanted to paint it differently than the rest of the vehicle, so I thought I'd put it on last. And after I started putting some of these other pieces on, I realized this is going to be really difficult to get on after the fact. So I went back in and started putting it in around the antennas, around the smoke dischargers, things like that, and I had kind of a little bit of a gap on that side as well as this side that I've just got done putting Vallejo's water-based putty inside of there, and then after we'll go over and sand it a little bit more, but it also works really good just to wet a Q-tip, a cotton swab, and then you just go in here and you can blend it out. And then I've done it once already, and I'm just waiting for the second coat to dry a little bit more. Then we'll sand on it, but I think it's gonna fill out pretty well. Now, we have not attached any of the tools, which you see all down here. Some of the guards, a lot of these parts too are not attached. I just put them in place to show you guys what the vehicle looks like. So once I get I'm just going to give one more quick check over, check for sanding, see if there's anything else I need to do, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do our shadow black and white coat on this. It's kind of funny too, because this vehicle is showing green box art, and it's kind of funny that Tamiya went ahead and molded it in the desert yellow type plastic that they have. Now I thought about doing Israeli markings on this because the Israelis use quite a few of these. The only problem is the Israelis use different tracks on their vehicle. They didn't have these rubber pads on it. So there is another company that makes aftermarket ones that I could eventually switch out. I think for right now we'll just go ahead and just paint it up as the French vehicle. You'll also notice too that I've just put one set of tracks on just to see how they went on, and they were a really nice fit. Once we get the we're going to take them off before we paint. Once we get all that done, we can go in there and using a little bit of Tamiya's glue, we can go in there and create a little bit of a sag inside of there as well. But like I said, those are going to come off before we do any painting. So now that you've seen that, I'm going to go ahead and do the last little bit of stuff I need to do on it, and then we're going to go ahead and put the black paint on it. Okay, now that we have the black and white coat done, you can kind of see what we were going for. Now remember too, there's going to be a big panel right here that covers most of that up. So now that we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and shoot the entire model XF58 olive green. Okay, now we're gonna rust up the muffler, and it's actually just a pretty simple process. We're putting down just a little paint thinner as an attachment, and then we're just gonna run over a little bit of our old rust from Vallejo. Now a lot of this is not seen, that's why the bottom of this is not painted or anything, but you will be able to see that edge pretty well, and maybe even kind of blend in a touch of a newer rust. Now it all looks the same right now because it's still wet, but given a few minutes this will dry completely differently, and we'll show you what that looks like once it's dry. Okay, there's not a lot of decals on this, so we'll just quickly show you what we're going to do. Little Mark Fit Strong from Tamiya, little coat of it underneath the decal. And then we're just going to slide, just show you this main one right here because it's nice and bright. We get our decal into place, get it the way we want it set up on it. You can use a cotton swab to kind of suck some of the excess moisture from around it. Quick coat of Mark Fit Strong on top of it. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then all we have to do is let that dry now for about 5 minutes. Go over it with a dry cotton swab to burnish it down. Now keep in mind too, the vehicle has been dull coated already, and we'll put a couple more coats of dull coat on it to seal in all the decals when we're done with that. So we'll let that dry. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the decals on, and then we'll start attaching some of the other parts. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've started attaching some of the tools and other little pieces like that. We also put the lens guards on and the black and silver lights underneath there. Now we're gonna start doing a little weathering, and I'm just gonna kind of show you a little area because I wanted to get as close as possible for you guys, but not have the camera always in my way. So what I'm doing right here is we're putting on a little enamel thinner, and we're gonna use a mixture of MIG's streaking grime, light rust, and rust streaking rust effect. Just give you kind of an idea what we're going to do here. So we'll put a little bit into these areas, and you want to put the little bit down first because that'll make the paint flow a little bit better. And then you want to kind of just take away any of the excess. Don't want to get too much on that decal. I kind of want it to be a little bit bright, because when we put the final dust coat on, that will lighten it down a bit too. And kind of show you on these little toolboxes too. A little bit of the enamel thinner, and then just small little areas right here. And you want to just go back and forth and blend it in, just till you get some dirty spots and areas that are not so dirty. So I wanted to give, like I said, give you the idea of what I'm doing right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the whole vehicle right now, and after it dries, we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, now we're taking a mixture of our enamel wash with a little bit of light sienna pigment in it, and we're just going to blot it up and get just the very backs as well as the inside. You can see the inside has already been done in here, and it's already starting to dry. And you can see the nice chalky dirty effect that we're getting on the inside there. Starting to look really cool like that. We're also just going to do a quick little weathering job on the tracks as well. And I've already painted them black and then misted them with a coat of the brown chipping color that we normally use. And now all we're going to do is just going to go over it with a little bit of light sienna and just blend it right in there. Now when it dries, I'll come back and show you what it looks like, and then we'll just wipe off the tops of the pads. But we're going to do the entire piece of track right now, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Now I'm attaching the tracks down. We put a little glue around the drive sprocket on the two of the return rollers, as well as the the idler wheel back there, and glued it down so it looks like it's a much more flat piece of track, like it's got a little bit of sag to it. And then we've also put a little bit of super glue on the bottom of these just to hold it all in place. Now all of this track is still drying around here, but you can kind of get a general idea. Once that dries completely, we will go ahead and clean off the pads and still leave the residue on all the sides of the track. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the track on, get that all ready to go, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Well, here we are. Here is our completed model, and I'll kind of give you a little 360 of the entire piece first. It's actually turned out, I'm very happy with the way the weathering came out. I didn't want to overdo it, but I still wanted to make a piece that looked pretty used, you know, but not destroyed type thing. So, and that was with using the different types of pigments and washes and just experimenting a little bit as you go. So each one will come out a little bit differently. Overall, the kit went together absolutely wonderfully, as you can imagine. It's a Tamiya kit. So this is actually probably about a grand total of about 20 hours of building. So this is something that a person could be able to complete, you know, over a long weekend. And depending on how much you want to, you know, detail you want to put into the weathering, that actually goes fairly quickly. Also give you a little bit higher angle view. Overall, I had a lot of fun building this kit. In fact, this is one of the kits, many of you may find that when you get so excited and how things are going together that you just keep wanting to keep building on it. So I spent a lot of hours in the row, but really had a really good time with it. So I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming.